All right. Nice enough to join us right now with more on that. The outstanding, dare I say, legendary voice of the Golden State Warriors, the one and only Tim Roye. Tim, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for your time. How encouraged have you been, Tim, by Klay's play the last two games before whatever that was in New Orleans?
Well, first of all, you have to really work on your legends. I think you really need to upgrade your legends. I think Klay. I think is just he's Klay, and he's gonna. He started slow before, and he'll probably start slow again in his career. And so, just to see him have fun and to get back to who he was, that was great. And then now, again, I last year I said that, and I really believe this, I don't think we can really judge Klay until the second half of this year. Then he's had a full year of games under his belt. He's coming off two horrific injuries. And so I think at that point we'll get an idea of who the everyday Klay is going to be. Is it going to be the same? Well, no, it's never the same, right? But after injuries like that. But, what's it going to be like? And I think that's what we're kind of looking toward and working toward. And you guys were talking about defense and getting a stop. Well, before the New Orleans game in my hotel room there, I was doing a little work, and I just for giggles went back and tried to match up what my eyes were seeing to the numbers. And so I ran the Warriors numbers after the 0-5 road trip and going into the New Orleans game before everybody took, they had the night off and they got blasted by the Pelicans. And in those 7 games after that road trip, the Warriors were a top 10 offensive team and a top 10 defensive team. So they were starting to get back. Their defensive rebounding numbers in that stretch went from 28 to 20. Not great, but as the kids like to say, trending in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So they were getting better on the defensive end. They were starting to put together some games where they, had their defense kind of tied together and nobody let go of the rope, so to speak. So I think they were trending in the right direction. Let's see if they can take that into the second quarter of the season. And then when we get to the 40-game mark, we're at the halfway point, let's see where their defense is there.
You mentioned the second quarter, talking about the second quarter of the season, but what about the second quarter of games? It seems like that's been a little bit of a bugaboo for this team. What can Steve Kerr do in terms of that second unit to get them to play a little bit more like the first team does?
I think they got to just kind of write it out and keep experimenting. We've seen Looney with that group. We've seen Draymond with that group. And I think they're trying to find different combinations. But these are guys who, A, have not played major minutes in the case of the young guys in a steady role. And then, B, they're also, groups that have not played together as a group. So it's going to take a little time, I think, for those and that group to come together. And, they don't have to be world beaters. All they have to do is maintain whatever the starters have given them. And so that to me is, it's going to be a work in progress. And I think we all kind of underestimated how difficult it is for 20-year-olds to really learn how to play in the NBA. We saw the flashes of the potential of Kuminga and Moody and Wiseman over the years. Then we forget that when you put them out there for 25 minutes a night, they're going to show at times just how young they are. And I think that's, again, it's something we have to kind of just take a deep breath and say, okay, this is going to be a work in progress, and you're going to have to go through stretches where it's not going to look pretty.
Tim Roye with us on 95.7 The Game. Tim, we had Coach Kerr on. It was a day after that Phoenix loss, and I asked him, because we all know the Warrior defense hasn't been what we expect it to be, and we know it can get better, but so far it hasn't been what we have thought it would be. So I asked him, when did he first notice that the defense wasn't Warrior-like defense? He said the first game, late in that first game, the opener against the Lakers, he said we were giving up too many transition baskets. How about to your eye? Was there a time, a game, a play where you first noticed this season that, okay, defensively, this team has some work to do?
Well, it was hammered home to me in the game in Detroit when the Pistons were getting the ball, and if they had one, they had 5, where they took the ball at midcourt, and whoever had the ball went on a drive and got all the way to the cup, and nobody got in front of him. Nobody came over to help. These are straight line drives. They're going right to the rim, and so that to me was like, okay, this team has to go back to square one defensively, and relearn what they already know, and so yeah, that was the moment where I said, okay, this team has a lot of work to do defensively, and they still do.
Tim, what do you make of the home-road disparity, and what do you cite as the reasons for the fact that they've been so good at home and yet so bad on the road?
Again, I think part of it is the consistency part, and what happens is we saw it in Houston. The starters get off to a great start, and then we mix in the guys off the bench, and all of a sudden that lead goes away. Now you're fighting. Now you're fighting the rest of the game with a team that now has confidence. You're the defending champions. What does that mean? That means every night everybody is fired up to play you. You're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. And so you have to be ready for that. In the past, the Warriors had veteran teams who were ready for that. They knew what was going on. This is not that type of a team. And then B, I think what happens too, especially we saw it in Houston, you give young players confidence, like the Warriors gave those Rocket players some confidence, and all of a sudden now you're in this dogfight, and you had to have a great game from the Splash Brothers to win that game. So to me, it's getting a lead, maintaining a lead on the road, and not giving the other team the belief that they can come back and win the game. And so far, for the most part, the Warriors have not done that on the road, and they need to find that. And they need to have, DiVincenzo to step up, JaMychal Green to step up. They need to have Kuminga and Moody have a good game on the road so that the starters don't have to come back in and work so hard just to get the lead back and then also win the game.
All right, Tim Roye, we know that you've been working in the NBA for a long time. You're a real student of the game. You're probably one of the few people who would really appreciate the fact that I'm wearing a San Diego Sales T-shirt today.
Wow!
So yeah, how about that? Yeah,
I have a San Diego Conquistador T-shirt. That's one of the ones I like. So.
Yeah. So in all your time covering the league, have you ever seen a player get better in his mid-30s the way Steph Curry seems to be doing before our very eyes?
Boy, I would have to say no, and I'll tell you why. Because, before the last 5-10 years, I don't think we had the type of training, the type of attention to detail with nutrition and sleep and workouts that we have now. The Warriors and everybody else in the NBA is traveling, a whole bunch of people who never were on the road before, and they work with these guys all the time. Players are always either stretching, they're working on their bodies, they're getting their bodies looked at, they're lifting weights. Even yesterday morning before we left New Orleans, I went down to try to make the day a push in the workout room, and nice. and there there's 2 or 3 players in there lifting weights, and among them was Steph Curry, and so. Before this time, when a guy would hit his mid-30s, that's when you would start to see the decline. They lose a step. They get, they're not as dynamic as they used to be. They don't explode in the air the way they used to be. Now we're seeing players, not only maintain what they have, and in Steph's case, get better. I mean, he's stronger. Yeah. He's smarter. He's finishes. Is there a better finisher in the game than he is right now? I mean, I don't think so, because he can finish with either hand. He takes hits on the way to the basket. It's remarkable. And no, I don't think we've seen this before. And I think part of it is what teams are doing to help their players, and part of it is just Steph refuses to get old. I mean, not only does he look like he's 19, he's playing like he's 19.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been incredible, and just watching him put up 50, unfortunately, in a losing effort is just awe-inspiring. Jordan Poole is a player that I'm a little bit confused about. It seems like one night he is aggressive and confident, and the next night he's not sure what he's supposed to be. What do you make of where Jordan Poole's been so far through 20 games?
I think it's a combination of factors, and I think the one is that teams are ready for him. Just like you're the defending champions. Well, now Jordan Poole is in everybody's morning walkthrough. Okay, we got to watch this guy. He likes to do this. He's going to try to get to the basket. We got to stay in front of him. We got to give help when he's on when he's got his defender on an island, and so people are talking about Jordan Poole as a way to, combat the Warriors. That's number one. He's getting more attention. Number two, he signed a big extension. I think psychologically, what that does to a player sometimes is that they try, and I've said this a couple times, they try to earn all the money in the first week. They try to say, okay, I've got to prove I'm worth this extension now. And I think in Jordan's case, he pressed a little bit at the start of the season. He was trying a little bit too hard. He's slowly and surely, coming back to who he is. We see signs of it, but we haven't seen the consistency we saw in recent days. And I think that's another part where I think we'll see some experimentation, from the Warriors coaching staff to try to find a way or a group to get him out there, to get him jump-started. Maybe he gets into the game, earlier to play with the starters to get his rhythm going, and then, he works in with the second group. So I think, you'll see different combinations, I think, in the weeks to come to try to figure out how to get Jordan into a good space.
Yeah, Steve Kerr has pointed that out as well, Tim. And as you know, Bo Lamar went through something very similar with the Conquistadors.
Bo Lamar.
Wow.
Way back when. Fans get replica rings tonight, and the Warriors were nice enough to bring some in today. Of course, you have the real deal. If we may ask, where you keep your rings? Do you break them out for special occasions?
I can't tell you where I keep my rings. That's going to tip everybody off to where they are.
But do you have that flex moment though, Tim? Do you ever just flash one out? And at what time do you feel like I need to flash on somebody?
I occasionally I'll wear one out to dinner, and one of the reasons why that I do that is that people will stop and they look at it, and to me it's like that may be their only chance to ever get close to something like that. So if they get a little bit of a joy out of that, then I'm all for that, because it is special. It's a different thing, and I think people appreciate the fact that they get a chance to look at it or take a picture with it and things like that. So I do wear it once in a while when I go out to dinner and with friends, and maybe the waiter or somebody walking by will see it, and I like it because again it may be their one chance to get close to something like that, and so if I can be that conduit, and maybe we make another Warrior fan out of them. So so there you go. By the way, I would just I looked up the sales on Basketball Reference, which is a wonderful website if you're a geeky NBA guy like me. They were coached by Bill Musselman.
Yes, they were.
Wow.
Yeah.
They only lasted 11 games, and you have a T-shirt of a team that only played 11 games.
Yeah, what happened was they changed their imaging because they wanted to get into the NBA, and then they found out Jack Cook and the Lakers said, we ain't letting San Diego into the NBA. So the sales said, all right, we're done. Thanks, everybody. So that was the end of the party when they found out they wouldn't be part of the merger.
Yeah, and then Donald Sterling then just said, no, I don't care. Yeah. We'll be the Clippers.
Yeah, there you go.
So
there you have it, yeah.
But by the way, the Clippers were the old Buffalo Braves, if people don't know. And they had a guy named Bob McAdoo on that team, and he could fill it up.
Yes,
let me tell you, he could score. They were coached by Jack Ramsey, one of the greatest coaches ever to be in our game. They wore these sweet powder blue jerseys, and they took the Celtics to 6 games in like the mid-'70s in the playoffs. And they had one more player, I think. They would have one more really good player. They probably would have been a team to maybe have a threat at a title.
Ernie DiGregorio and Randy Smith and Jim McMillan and Garfield Hurd and Bob McAdoo.
Garfield Hurd, a shot heard around the world.
Alone, Tim. You guys can go ahead.
I'm sorry.
You guys can go ahead and wax poetic.
I know.
See you all
it's a holiday week. Yeah,
it is a holiday week.
Yeah, Tim. Is it too early to look at this week and the games with the Clippers and the Jazz and try to judge their significance for the Warriors in the conference race? Because obviously they're in a hole here, and you got 2 teams, one team that we knew was going to be good and one team that's like, wow, where does this come from?
Well, it's funny you mention that because I never look at the standings too much, but I did the other day just to see where the Warriors were fitting in. They're fine. They were. I think before the game in New Orleans, I think they were like 2.5 games out of a home court. Everybody in the West has 6 losses. I mean, it just seems like all these teams are beating up on each other. So I don't think it's significant for the standings. I think to me, it's how the Warriors play. These 2 games, so just take these 2 games. If they play well in these 2 games and say they win both games and win it the right way, getting back defensively, getting defensive rebounds, trying to keep the transition points to a minimum, not fouling on every possession or turning the ball over every other possession. If they do those kind of things and they play better, then I think that's a better indication of where they are. As far as the standings go right now, I mean, they're probably didn't look this morning, but they're probably on the outside looking into a play-in, but not by much. And again, they're at the very worst, they're 4 games in the loss column out of first place. So there's plenty of time to find their footing, if you will, in the Western Conference race, just because everybody's balanced. If it was in the East, then you're saying, okay, well, 1 and 2 is probably off the table with Milwaukee and Boston playing so well. But right now in the West, everybody is kind of mashed all together, and I think it's going to be really fun for the fans, though, because I think as we come down the stretch in this season, there's going to be about 12 teams in the Western Conference that are going to have a lot of big games in the second half of the season.
Thanks for your time, Tim. Have a great call tonight. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to one and all. Enjoy your time with your loved ones. As you get older, you're reminded of the fact that these moments don't come by as frequently as we think they're going to come by. So enjoy it all, and we'll talk to you tonight from Chase Center.
Yeah, thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
See you guys.
Yeah,
enjoy the turkey leg. I prefer the turkey thighs of the industry. My